Welcome to part 2 of the communication benefit from using style guide driven development. In this lesson, I'll talk about centralizing documentation. We've talked about the advantages of connecting the source code of your application to the living style guide, keeping documentation right where you need it. So at the same time that you develop your elements and components, you can use the style guide to preview and test it. This is pretty neat that you can update your docs when your code is updated, saving yourself a trip to the wiki. But what about other types of documentation? Where can you store information that's related to the style guide but not really part of the source code? For example, let's say you're onboarding a new developer in your team and you want her to familiarize with your app. So you send her the living style guide so she can quickly see the elements and components that already exist. And that works great. But what if you can also point her to that living style guide so she can find information about coding standards that the team's currently following, how new components can be added to it, or accessibility guidelines that should be followed? The same scenario could be applied to a designer, but in this case, you may want to point him to design principles that should be applied when creating new designs, or how new icons can be added to an existing icon set. This type of information can live in many places, and you probably currently keep it in wiki entries, Google Docs, or emails. And every time you need to share them, you spend time finding the information and updating it. However, this info can also be part of your living style guide, centralizing its accessibility. You could almost think of the living style guide as the game rules for your app. Inside of the rules is all the information needed to know how to play the game, the building blocks and the rules for creating and making new building blocks, including how other members of your team can contribute to it and help maintaining it as a living document. At Bitovi, when using document CSS, we can easily add pages that live independently from the source code. These pages can be added in the navigation of the living style guide and can be formatted using simple Markdown or standard HTML, giving you the flexibility of adding any type of content. In the course Creating a Living Style Guide, you can learn the specifics of how you can create pages in your living style guide using document CSS. And this wraps up the course series of using style guide driven development in your document workflow. I hope you've learned the ropes of a development system that can improve your and your team's workflow. I invite you to share this course with others and reach out with any questions or observations you might have. Cheers!